I knew I was serving her at the time. It wasn't like I didn't know I was doing a good thing. I knew I was being a good kid by being there. And everyone looked at what I was doing as like a really great thing. I mean, they made that clear before they left, when they left me there. And it was a small thing. It was a small gesture in light of what your mother does for you your whole life.
Bellevue, Washington, October 2005. Hewen Jin Grigoni's mother is in the hospital, some sort of chronic abdominal pain. And when she visits, she knows she can't leave her mother alone, not even for one night. So she stays, and she curls up in her mother's hospital bed, and she watches the morphine drip. And, one adult diaper at a time, she helps keep her mother's dignity intact. This is Common Ties, and freelance writer Hewen Jin Grigoni wrote the first drafts of this story while in the hospital, knowing even then that what she did for her mother that first night would change her forever. Hewen talked about and recorded her story from her home in Boston.
I'll never forget seeing my mom in the hospital 2 years ago. The next evening she would be diagnosed with cancer, but that first night before we knew was the night that really did a number on me. My sister and I arrived at the hospital as soon as we got the word from our dad. Someone led us past a couple of occupied beds and opened a curtain to her section of the room for us. And there she was, my mom. She laid on her side, a hand covering one side of her face. She looked exhausted. When it was time for us to go and let her get some sleep, there was no question about it for me. I was staying the night too. I was not going to leave my mom alone with coughing, moaning strangers as roommates. My family thought I was being valiant, though I'm not so sure for whose sake I stayed. A nurse brought me a blanket and folding chair, and when she bid us goodnight and drew the curtain closed, I climbed into bed with my mom and pulled the covers over both of us. Ain't nowhere else I'd be with my mom lying in a hospital with tubes and IVs sticking out from all over. We laid like spoons. I slid my arm over my dear mama's belly and wanted to squeeze with all my might, though you can't squeeze a person too hard when they're in the emergency for severe abdominal pain. I eventually found a spot high around her neck and held on as best she could take it. I had just come back from Chicago visiting friends and family and was reading The Grapes of Wrath at the time. I don't leave the house without a book or two in case I'm ever caught in a situation with nothing to do, so I had the grapes with me. Through the night, I read about Tom and Mama Jode. I slept. I prayed. I talked to my mom. She was connected to a machine that gave her a heavenly rush of pain-killing morphine at the push of a button. It was programmed to administer the drug no sooner than 10 minutes between doses. My mom vacillated throughout the night, feeling high as a kite and bludgeoned in the gut. Then every once in a while, she would speak with utter clarity. It was my mom. No tipsiness. No pain. How was Chicago? Good, but I'm glad I'm back. Silence. Mom, I love Dad so much more than Uncle Bruce. Of course you do. He's your dad. We talked about my trip, our family, nothing. Mom pushed the button as the pain ebbed back. Then late into the night, when she faded into tipsiness again, Mom began divulging old family secrets. She confided in me things that mothers don't tell their daughters, family gossip concerning sins that happened before my time, the kind of information that people instinctively know to keep within their own generation. I knew it was the morphine that loosened her tongue, but I didn't feel guilty for letting her speak. It was a sort of lucky recompense for being the kid who had to change her mother's diaper. A couple hours before going to bed, my mom was given one drink called Fleet and another called Go Lightly. The purpose of these diuretics is to basically trick your bowels into thinking their job is to hose down a small house fire. This, the doctor said, would clear things up for a colonoscopy in the morning. With that, the nurse handed my mother a diaper. A 62-year-old Korean woman in a diaper. You think of how cute baby diapers are, little padded diapers for little baby bottoms. You can't believe how cute they are, actually, as cute as the little tush that goes in them. But adult diapers, they are not so cute. Seeing my mother wearing plastic panties the size of a large globe was a new experience. But when it's your mother, you do the only thing you can do. You pretend we all wear plastic panties to sleep, then you kiss her cheek goodnight and try to get some sleep. The end. But it wasn't the end. Every couple hours throughout the night, my mother would try to not need her adult diaper. Then in bleary fatigue, we would shuffle to the bathroom together for a change. She held onto her IV on wheels. I held onto my mom. Each time I helped change her diaper, I noticed it weighed a good pound or two, carrying adult-sized waste. It stunk. I noticed also that these were measured observations, not something that disgusted me. By the wee hours of the morning, we had somewhat of a system down, negotiating the many tubes stemming from my mother's body, the confined space, the balancing on one foot and then the other. We became pros, a sort of expert adult diaper-changing duo. At some point, when fatigue became delirium, then became the funniest thing either of us had ever done, I imagined my mom as the youthful, spirited new mother she was long ago. I imagined the time she performed solo diaper-changing feats for my siblings and me without complaint. For years on end, pounds and pounds of pee and poop. The image broke my heart. There I was, 4 o'clock in the morning, teary-eyed and touched by a soiled adult diaper in my hand. It was the kind of moment when you're lucky enough to realize how much you love a person. And that with the rare opportunity to experience such humility, duty becomes a compulsion, not an obligation. And even in dealing with poop, you no longer mind the stink. Because I stayed in the hospital with my mom, she didn't need the help of any nurses that night. Those wee-hour acrobatics in the bathroom with her daughter, in fact, kept my mother's dignity intact. By morning, I knew it was an honor to have been the kid who was there the night Mom needed help with her diapers. I knew even then that those hours spent in service to her would be some of the most precious I have ever spent with any person in my life.
Even though this story serves to humanize and has such potential to humiliate Howen's mother, when she shared it and told her mother that Commentize is publishing it, Howen says she was shocked by her mother's reaction.
I had her read it, and I sat there and I watched her, and she started crying, and I was so surprised. And then she said, "I want a copy of this. I'm going to keep this." And when you decided to take it, she was in Korea at the time taking care of her mom, and I just called her and I told her, and she was so happy. It was, almost as if I had been talking about her great cooking skills and now everyone would know about it or something. I was really surprised. So she's not embarrassed about it at all.
You've been listening to Commentize. I'm the editor, Elizabeth Moore, and this story was produced by Walter Dixon.